Hello. How we doing? Can people hear me? Okay. I'm just going to give it a minute till everybody's here. Okay. Everybody's here? Yep. All right. Good evening and welcome to the January 19th, 2021. Hard to write that in your check. I don't even write checks anymore, so I don't have that problem. But anyway, meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals for the City of Plattsburgh, where we will hear 3 applications and conduct old and new business. The first application is going to be 2257. I'm not calling anybody to this yet. 2257, Kenneth and Wendy Nayland, 2 Sandra Avenue, Class B area variance. Second is 2258, Janelle Kingsley, Class B area variance for 49 Oak Street. And the third is 2259, Anthony Conti, northeast corner of Kansas Avenue, North Road, Class B variance for the construction of multiple principal structures. It does say and coverage on the agenda, but that has been eliminated based on the ruling that it is a townhouse construction. We have all 7 members here, and we have a conflict on the 2259 that Ellie Dent is a member of the Homeowners Association that's asked us to postpone and therefore is recusing herself so that there's no conflict. And PJ Whitbeck will be taking, as first alternate, will take Ellie's place. Anyway, I'm calling the meeting to order. And the first thing I'll do is I'm going to have a roll call to make sure who's here. Ron Noland? Yes. Kelly Porter?
Yes, I'm here.
Julie Bond? Here. Say yes, actually, Julie. Can you push your, okay, we need it verbally. Sorry. Yeah, you're muted, but that's it. Push the space bar.
Here, I did. Here.
Yeah, you got it. Okay, Megan Whedon? Yes, Scott Demain?
Here.
TJ Whitbeck?
Yes.
Ellie Gent?
Here.
Okay. So with that said, we are going to take these applications in the order that on the agenda, and we will have time for public comment on these, depending on what happens with the third one. So we will start with appeal number 2257, Kenneth and Wendy Nayland, if I said that correctly, 2 Sandra Avenue. Class B area variance request to add an attached one-car garage to left side of home, extending into side yard setback. Okay. And Wendy, you're with us?
Yes, Ken and Wendy are here.
Okay. Okay, and are you not doing video, just a phone?
I can do video. I'm just kind of new at this. I'm not sure. Should I?
It's okay, it's up to you, right? But it helps sometimes if we see you and know you're
Sure, I'm on
actually
an
not.
iPad.
Okay, well, either way, whatever works for you is fine. Okay,
How do you get it to video?
what's
Is there
that?
some? I'm on an iPad. How would I hit it to get video on?
I don't know, but that's okay, you're
Okay.
fine. All right, so Ken's with you, Ken and Wendy Nayland. Is it Nayland?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. 2 Sandra Avenue, an ad on the, hi there.
Hi.
An ad on the
Hi,
left side,
Wendy.
left side of the house. That's great. You look fine.
Okay.
And add on to the left side of the house, a 16 by 25 garage. We have the application, and we have a small, we have the application. The county planning board has determined that it's a local issue. It must have gone because you're near the college or something, right? Or some public property. That's why I went to the county, Joe, I assume?
Yeah, they're within 500 feet of Plattsburgh State property.
Right, okay. And there's also correspondence from MLD saying, oh, I'm sorry, saying that if it has lights and outlets, it should be fed from the house. And then there's a bunch of stuff from Century 21, including the original contract, and so on. What I'll tell you though, and part of that comes from the fact that our application talks about financial stuff and all that, and proving, you know, whether it's and all that stuff, and that's why you did all that, and that's wonderful. But except after all that work, I'm going to tell you that that's not so much the issue here. In other words, we are not to do stuff just because it makes your house worth more or less. There's something to be said for the fact that it makes it worth more to you as a comfort thing, or if you had, I don't know, sometimes people want to put a mother-in-law addition on the back because their mother has to live with them, you know, things like that. But what I'm going to tell you, and I'm sure you know this, is that it's a pretty tough variance because the house the lot is 75 feet wide, which means you're required to have the 10 feet on one side and 15 feet on the other, and a total of 25. You have 9 feet, is my understanding, on one side, and had 19 feet, so that you're at 28. So you certainly had more than 15 and the combination proper, but the 9 was deficient. But that's a pre-existing deficiency.
Right.
The problem really is that if you build a 16-foot wide garage, you're going to end up with a 3-foot. And I opened this to the board so they can talk to you about it too. It's not just me talking here. But the problem is that that's going to leave you 3 feet from the property line and a total of 12 when 25 is required. And it's just, that's not something I've ever really seen us do with an attached garage. The problem is, and I understand you have restrictions in the back. If you were to build, I just want to talk to you about this in general, then we'll go to the board and everybody will go to the public. If you were to build, and I know it's not what you're asking for, but and I know that you have issues because of the deck, as an example, but if you were to build a garage in the backyard, and they can't be in the side yard, I understand that, but a detached garage, that can be 5 feet from the property line because it's an accessory structure. When you attach it to the house, it's part of the house. It means that the house, the principal structure, which is supposed to be 10 and 15 away, is actually too close. So that's what you're facing. I'm gonna, instead of going into a long thing, I'm gonna open this to the board for questions or suggestions and see what they have to say and comments, okay? We'll start with that,
Okay.
okay? I'm
Yes.
looking for comments.
I have some questions. Kyle, do you have any, or Joe, do you have the ability to put any pictures up for a better visual?
Yeah, sure. Kyle, you got that?
Okay. Okay.
Would it be right to the hedge, basically?
Yes, approximately.
So that was my next question, was what is on the property line? So it looks like there's a good, probably 8 to 10 foot hedge there.
Right. That's in the backyard. We would go right up to those hedges though.
Okay.
Who owns the hedges?
Those are the neighbors, Gary Walker.
Joe, were there any letters in opposition to this at all?
I don't believe we got any correspondence, no.
Have you spoken to the neighbors to ask them their thoughts or let them know that this was planned?
Yes, I have. Yes.
Go ahead.
Gary had no problems with it. He says that side of his yard or house is like a dead space, he said, his exact words. He also told me there was a tree. If you look in front of the hedges, in front of the fence, you see another tree to the left next to the driveway. He said I could take that down if I wanted to, if it was in the way. So he has absolutely no problems with the garage.
And also on that side of Gary's house, there is no windows. So it's not going to be like a structure in his view or anything like that.
And do we know how far away from the property line his house is?
No, I don't
From
know.
Okay, on that side.
Maybe you
yeah.
got some pictures, Joe?
I can try and measure it quickly on satellite imagery while you guys are talking.
Okay.
Okay.
Kyle, are you the one doing the?
Go ahead. I'm just asking for more comments.
Kyle is the one sharing the pictures, Kyle.
Okay, I like to see there you go. Cool. Okay.
Okay.
Looks like the house to the north is 14 feet from the property line on that side.
That sounds about right.
And it looks like 10 of it's taken up by hedge, give or take.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Is the hedge staying?
Oh, well, it's not our hedge, but we can trim on what's over on our property. We can trim it. I don't believe any of it needs to come down.
No.
Okay.
We had a contractor look, and measure out and stuff. And it would be right up to the hedge, but not needing to come down.
No hedges will come down. You might need some trimming because it comes over like 3 feet through the fence, but the hedges will stay. Just trimmed.
Scott, this question is for you. The 16-foot garage, the width of the garage, is that the standard width of a garage?
No such thing as a standard width, but they have a fireplace that sticks in. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yes. Approximately 3 feet away from the house.
Okay.
So if the garage is 16 feet wide, you minus the
3 feet.
Now you got a 13 foot.
So if you want to open your door. to
Yeah,
your
you want to
car,
get,
Right, we won't be able to use the garage getting in and out, correct?
I can't see from there. Is there an entrance on that side of the house?
No, that is another thing we were gonna do is a doorway into the garage, into the house.
Okay, but right now you don't enter the house that way, right?
No.
No,
it's
we
back-
have to go
No,
around
okay.
up through the deck.
Just trying to understand everything.
Sure,
Sure.
sure,
So the entry in the back is off the deck?
yes.
Kelly, in answer to your question, to give you kind of design issues, a standard one-car door would be 9 feet wide. 8 feet wide's possible, but that's narrow. But then you have to have figure room for the doors to open. If they're in past where the fireplace is, the passenger side would be fine. The driver's side, you need room to open the door and get out.
Thank you. That's what I was trying to figure was the average garage door. I'm trying to think of a way that we can find a little happier solution to this to bring you a little farther away from that boundary line. I know I have a garage from about 1890 and I can't open my doors when I'm in the garage. I can get in myself, but my passengers have to get in once I pulled the car out. And I believe my total width is like 12 feet for each bay of the garage. It's pretty tight.
Right.
I guess what I would say relative to softening this or not is that it is far enough into the side yard that this is not a case where like 1 foot is going to make it way better or 2 feet is going to make it way better. It's either this makes a real case for itself or it's just too much of a variance to grant. I mean, because I'm not trying to be tough on you guys, but what I'm saying is either we're going to say, yeah, this, because it's also where the driveway lines up to be able to get into the garage and all that stuff. So it's really becomes an issue of, are we willing to grant a variance for an attached garage that close to the property line or not? I mean, whether it's 3 feet or 5 feet isn't going to make a difference. All it's going to do is make the garage less usable. So that's really what it comes down to is, you know, that I don't see where they have room to, if they want to build a successful garage, they don't really have any room to compromise other than the 16 feet. I'm not trying to say that's good or bad. I'm just saying that you can't build a 12-foot wide garage with a 3-foot fireplace sticking into it. It just doesn't work, you know.
Right.
Right. Would you?
Right. I agree.
Okay. Yeah. Are there more comments right now, or I'm going to open it to the public, see if we have anybody holding their hand up?
What is the, and this, I guess, question for Joe or Kyle, what is the distance on the other side of the house from the property line?
9 feet.
And Wendy and company, who owns the hedge on that side?
On the side we want to put the
Jenkins.
garage or the other side?
The other side.
That would be Jenkins,
Okay,
John and Lori Jenkins.
okay. Does the hedge go all the way back behind Chris Murnane?
It goes all, yes, it goes to meet his property line. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to open this to the public. Kyle, or either whoever's monitoring, can you let me know if anybody's raising their hands from the public to speak regarding this?
No hands, Ron.
Okay, and at this point, I'm going to close the public hearing portion of this application. And I'm looking for any other questions or comments from the board. And if not, then I'm going to go to the seeker. No comments or questions? All right. Let's see if I can get to the seeker. Oh, it's back here. Big package for such a little garage. Okay, you filled out a form, and that is a short environmental assessment form. And this is to add the thing, will proposed action comply with existing adequate good practice and 2 feet red line. Permit or, this is the older one, by the way, for some reason, Lisa, right? I don't know why, but this isn't the, this is the older short form one with the, it's okay. We can still take the same action on it. And it good for you, by the way, Wendy and Ken, which whoever filled this out,
That's Wendy.
did a good job because you answered 10 properly, which was, does it involve a permit approval or funding now or ultimately from any other thing? And you said yes, building permit from the building inspector's office to Class B variance. Almost everybody gets that type of question wrong. Good job.
Thank you.
And it doesn't have a valid permit. It does ask some stuff and it's got some other questions. I would first of all ask if anybody on the board has a problem using the old short form seeker instead of the new one. It's okay with everyone? Can I just see, I'm going to ask, I'm not going to ask for a motion, but I'm going to ask as a show of hands, everybody, the 5 voting members to say, just raise your hand, yes, which you all did, right? Okay, thank you. All right, so I don't believe that even though the questions aren't there, I'm going to take a wild guess and say that using city utilities, which I assume it would hook up to the house existing service and not have a separate commercial rate service like MLD implied, that it doesn't have any adverse environmental answers that would do that. But I'm looking for a motion to say that I can sign this in the same way as if it had 11 questions that showed little or no environmental impact, and then I'm authorized to sign it.
Ron, I'll make a motion that for appeal 2257, the short environmental assessment form has been reviewed, and after reading parts 1 and 2 of the form, that you can check in part 3 that this proposed project will have little to no environmental impact.
Seconded by, I'm sorry, I didn't see it.
I'll second
Somebody
that.
second. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Aye.
I'm going to do a roll call. I'm going to do a roll call for that. Ellie Gent.
Aye.
Kelly Porter.
Aye.
Megan Whedon.
Aye.
Scott Gemain.
Aye.
Ron Noland. Aye. So that's the seeker portion. Do we have any further discussion regarding this? Do people want to make comments about whether they like it or don't like it, or think it's good or bad, or just want to get to a motion?
I would say let's get to a motion. This is a tough one. And there's, like you said, Ron, it's a all or nothing type of answer.
Right. So the motion.
Because the option is a completely different design.
Right. Well, I'm going to say, now let's just discuss it before we get to emotion a little bit. I don't see that there's I'm caught in a quandary here. I'm going to tell you, Ken and Wendy, because I honestly, I don't like such extreme variances, and I don't like having only 3 feet from the property line. You've got to, and I fully believe you that Gary Walker says that he doesn't mind, and although this is going to live on past you and Gary and everybody, whoever is going to own these 2 houses eventually are going to live with this condition, and that's one of the issues. And it is an extreme variance. So that's one part that's tugging me one way, and that is because it's 3 feet when you need theoretically 15, okay?
Mhm.
And it's going to make you have a total of 12. That doesn't mean it's a bad thing or it's good for you or not good for you or you really want it or don't want it. And if people vote no, it may not be because they don't want you to have it. It's because they're worried about that setting a precedent with that variance. And on the other hand, if people vote yes, doesn't mean that they don't like that zoning concept. It's because they feel that this is more of a benefit to you that has to so heavily outweigh that. It's not by a couple of feet. So just so you understand, that's the quandary we're in.
Yeah, I
Okay.
understand. Can I just say something?
Sure, absolutely.
I feel like even if we didn't own this house, putting a one-car garage that isn't impacting the neighbor at all because there's no windows or anything on that side of his house, that it would actually be a benefit for whoever else would own the house.
Right, right. And I don't disagree. And I fully understand. I don't see that there's another design you can do except maybe to tear out a whole bunch of your beautiful backyard deck and destroy it, to put a freestanding garage in the back and extend your driveway and all kinds of other stuff. And I don't see that working either. So that's where I'm personally torn on deciding how to vote. But what I'll tell you is that the other scary part is that it sets a precedent, and somebody's going to come to us and say, you gave them a 3 foot. You allowed a house 3 feet there. You have to allow it for me. That's the other thing we're always careful about. Just so you understand what's going into this voting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ron,
So I'm going to be, yes,
can I add,
go ahead.
some statements?
Yeah.
I want to say, I agree with everything that you just said, and you as well, Wendy. I guess the thing that makes this a little bit easier is, so anybody that here probably knows I do not like setting precedent. It's like one of the things I really walk away from most often. But I do feel like as a zoning board member that I have to look at each individual situation in and of itself, and there are extenuating circumstances with this, and the fact that you do have limited options. You have that chimney, you've got a neighbor that's a pretty decent distance from the boundary themselves, and there's no windows, and you've lived there for 25 years. All of those things they play a role in this. And even if you were to sell the house, because of that neighborhood, like most of the houses on that neighborhood have garages.
Yes.
And you also is a very established home with a pool and a deck, and it's a family home where a garage would be really important in that setting. So I just want you to know that I precedent is really important to me, but extenuating circumstances can kind of weigh that. I'm done.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Does anybody else, Ellie or Megan, do you have any comments, questions? No?
No.
Then I'm looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion. I make a motion for appeal 2257 to approve for the Class B area variance request to add an attached one-car garage, a 16-foot by 25-foot one-car garage on the side of the home, leaving a 2-foot setback. I'm sorry, 3-foot setback.
Seconded by, is that you, Megan? You're muted or something.
Yep.
Are you muted? Okay. Seconded by Megan. Okay, we are going to chat with Lisa now. And we're going to let me see, why am I not allowed to chat with you, Lisa, for some reason? Oh, maybe here it is. Oh, here it is. Okay. A yes vote is to approve, a no vote is to not approve.
Okay, Megan, yes.
Hear
You're
me?
muted, son.
Kelly, yes.
Yes.
Scott, no.
No, correct.
Ron, no.
That's correct.
Elizabeth, yes.
Yes.
Okay, so that is 3-2, which is what you need to pass it. And understand, you're all set. You need to go through everything, get a building permit. It shows the diverse thoughts of the board. Congratulations on your variance, and I'm not, just so you know, because I do this often when there are separate, different votes, it's not unanimous. I'm gonna have every member say why they voted yes or no on your thing. This is not so much for your benefit, but part of our procedure. So you might as well stick around just for a few minutes. So Ellie, can you tell us why you voted yes or no?
Yes, actually, I was leaning towards no, but I had a feeling that you and Scott would vote no, and I was just nervous about precedent, but I agree with what Kelly said about there being extenuating circumstances, so I voted yes, figuring that that would be just enough to bump it, allow it.
Okay,
Great,
thank you.
thank you.
Megan, did you want to talk about why you voted yes? You're delayed or something.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Personally, I voted yes because I think it would fit in fine with the character of the neighborhood to have a one-car garage. Like we said, there's plenty of others in that neighborhood that do.
Thank you. Kelly, why did you vote yes?
I think I mostly stated why I did. I personally have several friends that live on that street, and I can't think of one house on that street except for yours that doesn't have a garage. And I do understand that sometimes we are, restricted by our boundaries, and that really stinks. But I do think that overall the character will fit fine. And this is just one of those cases that I feel like if we were up against somebody that didn't have the extenuating circumstances, we could clearly point out that there's differences. So I felt comfortable with the yes.
Okay. Scott?
My problem was the significance of the variance, and as Kelly mentioned, as all of them, the neighborhood. And I have looked at the neighborhood, and this house is more like a house that is built on Kogan, and you find most all of the garages detached behind the house. And I looked at it, it was a possibility to do that, but I also knew, or I had a feeling that it was going to fly anyways.
Thank you. And as for me, I voted no, mainly because I was concerned about setting a precedent where people could come and say you gave this huge a variance. That was more, I didn't think it's a bad thing, and I think that Gary Walker says he doesn't mind. It's going to be okay for the next couple of years while you're all still alive.
More than a couple, I hope.
No, me too, trust me. But anyway, I don't think that it's going to be even actually a problem probably for future, and whoever buys these houses away in the future, in the 40 years from now, will know that they have to live with that. So, I didn't think it was necessarily that bad, except I didn't like granting that big a variance. That's really what it was. And so, in general, and I had, again, I'm going to say that I think we all read each other pretty well on the board. And I think that everybody felt that one way or another it was going to probably go through anyway. So, and that weighed for me a little bit, that I didn't want to just be mean to you. And I'm serious about that. So you're all set. You need to go get a building permit from the building inspector, make sure you have complete plans, and thank you very much for participating in the process and letting us help decide your future.
Thank
Yes,
you.
I want to thank you. We've been waiting 25 years for this answer. You can ask Joe, but we're very happy and we thank you very much, all you board members.
Thank
Good.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Have a good day. Good evening. All right. The next appeal is appeal number 2258, Janelle Kingsley, 49 Oak Street, Class B area variance, request to rebuild the upper deck to previous dimensions. Okay. Janelle, are you joining us by video and phone?
Video, unmute. Unmute.
Hello?
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Hello?
Hi.
Oh, hi, Janelle. Good to
I
see you.
apologize if you logged that one off. Okay, we're trying to familiarize ourselves with Zoom here.
There you go. Oh, it's okay, Kate. We'll get you.
Oh, okay.
Am I echoing? Yes, I am. What? No. Can you hear me?
I think
Okay.
they had two on, just trying to
Okay.
bring the Janelle back in.
Okay, okay. Oh, all right.
There, I think we got it.
There we are. Hi, Janelle. How are you?
Oh my gosh, sorry. We were trying to figure
That's
out
okay.
how to get on, and I think we got it now.
Yeah, you're okay. Good evening, Janelle.
Good evening.
You're the owner of, and I assume it's a rental, you live in Peru, so I'm assuming this is a rental property on Oak Street?
Correct,
Great.
yes.
And my understanding from the building inspector is that the porches, which we have a picture of what it looked like before, needed repair. And you could have repaired it piece by piece. In other words, a little bit here and a little bit there and not run into this problem. But it's my understanding that you took the roof off and stuff to repair the deck. And now you want to replace it exactly the size it was before. Is that correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay. I'm going to go to the building inspector now about this. Joe or Kyle, can you explain how this is deficient?
Okay, so the roof is really the issue here. They repaired the porch, and this is a pre-existing non-conforming portion of the building. The lot is small, the structure is large on the lot, and the porch is about 8 feet from the setback, which is non-conforming already. It has been, but you're allowed to maintain the non-conformity by repairing it and such. And my understanding is that that's what they did with the ground level deck. They repaired it, but took the roof off. I believe it was a necessity in doing the repair of the ground level deck, knowing that they would need to secure a variance to put the roof back up, because once the roof came off, it became an issue where we needed to get it blessed by the zoning board. And the roof represents 4.5% of the lot.
How much?
4.5%.
That's what they're over on coverage?
That's what this roof constitutes. They're actually currently over more. So as a multi-unit
Okay.
building, you can only cover 20%. they already cover 35%. And this roof brings it to 39.6%.
Yeah, but this was all a pre-existing non-conforming condition, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And was the lower floor just repaired?
I'll
Well,
let the applicant answer that.
the lower floor, the whole structure was in dire need of being basically repaired or torn off and replaced. So we took off the roof, the upper section, and repaired the bottom floor in segments, but it basically was overall, the whole bottom floor was replaced. The whole thing, it became a safety hazard. It wasn't, it had to come down. People would have been, the whole thing would have collapsed probably in another year.
But according to you, Joe, the footprint would meet repair standards.
Yes, that's right. And they would have been able to repair it in place as it was. You're allowed to maintain a pre-existing non-conforming condition.
Okay. So it's
Was
only
the
the
roof bad? I'm sorry, Scott.
so it's only the upper floors that got torn out all as one and rebuilt or want to be rebuilt.
Yeah, the roof and the upper deck was in such state of disrepair and falling apart that it had to be taken down. And to try to somehow cobble it together in order to tear down parts of it to rebuild it piece by piece in place would have been just a nightmare. It would have been almost, it just wasn't feasible.
It wouldn't have been, I doubt it would have been safe.
No,
I don't think it would have been OSHA compliant,
yeah.
right? No, okay, so I'm going to tell you that I look at this and I'm, we always appreciate the building inspector's office erring on the side of caution here, and I don't think that they're wrong about saying that the roof came off in one sense. However, in my mind, the replacement of the second floor and roof done in a safe manner is probably more important. We see this all the time, frankly, mostly with garages. People come back. Sometimes people come back and say, "Can I just make the garage 2 feet bigger, or this or that?" But in general, we see this a lot where people could take down one wall of the garage, another wall, hold the roof up, take part of the roof off, and you could have done that. So I think that the building inspector is right to be cautious to say that it should come by us as a question. But if this is going to, other than looking nicer and newer and being safer, going to be the same as exactly the non-conforming situation you had before, I barely would, and I'm not questioning their decision to do this, I barely would see that it would be any question about a variance to keep it the same way it was. If you were coming back and saying, "Oh, we want to make the front deck bigger," and we get that all the time, that's a different story. But that's my opinion. I'm only one person on this 5-person board. So I'm looking for any other comments from people regarding this question. If not, I'm going to open it to the public. Okay, Kyle, is there anybody raising their hand?
No hands.
Negative, is that you said?
Correct, no hands.
Okay, then I'm going to close the public hearing portion of this, and if there are no other questions from anybody on the board, I'm going to ask that we do the short environmental assessment form. Okay, question number 2 on the seeker does list the building inspector, but it also should list ZBA variance under number 2. So, and other than that, this is an outside deck. I don't know as I personally see how this could possibly have any environmental impact, but I'm going to leave that to the board in case anybody has any questions or wants to make a motion regarding the seeker.
I'd like to make a motion in regards to Appeal 2258 after review of the short environmental assessment form, that the board In part two, check no or small impact may occur. And as a result of that, that the chair check the box that says that in part three that no significant impact may occur as a result of this project.
Seconded by Megan?
Oh.
Megan, this time. Thank you. All in favor, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. So as a quick roll call, Ellie,
Aye.
Kelly,
Aye.
Megan,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Ron, aye. So that is that. The second question, unless there are other questions, is do I have any other questions about this before I ask for a motion? Okay, then I'm looking for a motion from someone to approve the variance as shown in the plans and in the application to rebuild the same as, and I'd like to phrase in there, rebuild as the same pre-existing non-conforming condition.
Do I have a motion?
You guys aren't doing it. It's okay. Don't be embarrassed. It's okay.
He looked at me and I was looking at him. And I was
Are you making the motion?
My first
Janelle, make the
time, I don't
motion.
know.
Hurry up. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
All right, Janelle, I'll make the motion for you, okay?
I appreciate that.
I'd like to make a motion in regards to Appeal 2258 for Janelle Kingsley, the location of the project at 49 Oak Street to Class B variance to rebuild the front porch within the dimensions that they were previously before they started tearing it out. And the
Okay.
previous dimensions were a non-conforming grandfathered in building condition. Yes, thank you.
Okay. Ellie, did you second that?
Aye.
Okay, you're seconding it? Thank you. All right, so we are going to now send Lisa a yes or no vote. A yes vote is to approve.
Megan, yes.
Yes.
Ron, yes.
Yes.
Scott, yes.
Yes.
Megan, yes. Elizabeth, yes.
Yes.
And Kelly, yes.
Yes.
Okay, that was 5-0. You're all set. Get your permit in place with Joe. Thank you very much for improving houses on Oak Street.
Thank you
Really,
very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Have a good evening. You're all set. Okay? Okay. We are now going to move on to appeal 2259 Anthony Conti, northeast corner of Kansas Avenue and New York Road. Class B variance request to permit the construction of multiple principal buildings on the same parcel and overage of maximum building coverage is not applicable anymore. And we have Aaron, you're here, and
Yes.
I assume that's Tony,
Yes,
Anthony, whoever.
Tony.
Tony. Okay. Are you joining video wise? Yes. Hi, Aaron. Okay, so the first issue we have here is that we have received correspondence from the homeowners association and then separately from Tom Renane as their attorney, asking us to postpone this for a month because they didn't get the information in time. We discussed this, I don't know if you guys attended the pre-meeting, but we discussed this some in the pre-meeting, and this is the first thing we got to decide is if we're going to continue to hear it or postpone it. And we'll hear from you also regarding that. But first, as a board, part of what we discussed in the pre-meeting and is evident certainly is that we believe that the city staff properly advertised, mailed, and put on the website, the city website, the agenda and all the relevant information for all the applications. The application has since been modified because the building inspector made a determination this is a townhouse project, which changed what was required. If the threat of lawsuits or Article 78 was to deter us from doing stuff, we'd still be back talking about Prime.
Ron, hey Ron, can I bring something up for a second?
Yeah.
So Kyle reminded me just prior to the meeting that there's a chance that this actually Lake Country Village didn't have to be notified. With this type of a variance, it's the adjacent properties, the properties that border this property and across the street, right? So if you pull out the right of way and you push the properties together from across the street, we count those as well. But the way the parcel lines lined up, which are overlaid by the county GIS, it was too close to call. We weren't positive that they wouldn't have touched at the very corner if we pulled the road out. So we notified them, but I was just looking at it again. I'm not positive that they had to be notified. Kyle, I don't know if you got that you can share that picture, and if it could make sense to the board or be a factor into the consideration of this.
But while we're doing that, while Kyle's getting that up, it is my understanding that you notify for area variances adjacent properties, correct?
Adjacent properties, yes.
Are properties across the road, directly across a public way, considered adjacent?
Yes, so that's what I was getting at.
Okay.
So if you pulled out the right of way, so if you're looking at this with the big lot on Kansas and you pulled out the right of way and touched the properties across the street at the very top corner of it, it might meet the top corner of the Lake Country Village where it says 7. I don't have control of the cursor, so I can't show you that, but
right.
Yeah, so Kyle's showing you right there. Okay, so if you took the road out and pushed those properties together and those two corners touched, then we would be required to notify them. But it was too close to call, so we sent
Right.
them the notice anyway.
Right, but I guess my question is, isn't Lake Country Village pretty big?
Yes.
Okay. So
If I may,
I want to understand this. I'm not saying it's either way or not, but even if those properties across that street are adjacent, that's not the entire homeowners association, correct? That's those property owners, right?
yes, the houses to the north or the left of that picture are privately owned across the street from that homeowner. So those are not part of the homeowners.
Those are not.
So do you see where Kyle's going with that cursor? So everything besides what he's circling right now is private.
Well, right. That's Right. The homeowners association owns the space around those fourplexes to the top of the.
Well, no, are those individual units? Are those townhouses or something?
They're
Well,
condominiums. Yeah.
The
So they
common
own.
ground, the common ground is part of the homeowners association.
Okay, so the homeowners association owns that common ground right where the hand is now.
Exactly.
Okay. So the homeowners association, right, because those are townhouses and the owners of the townhouses own the footprint of the unit and the homeowners association owns a common area, correct?
That's right.
Okay. So, wasn't one of the correspondences we got that there are however many members of the homeowners association? Earlier today, we got correspondence, right? And the
Yeah,
first one I thought,
right. I believe there's over 300 members to that homeowners.
okay. So, and I'm going to go back to this, and Kelly and I discussed this some too, but I have to assume that out of 300 members, somebody looks at the legals. I mean, there are lots of people like Kelly that over 30 years of being a subscriber never looked at the legals, right, Kel? But again, if we did there are several ways to communicate our public hearings. Advertisement in the press, on the city website, and also correspondence to adjacent property owners. So I guess what one of the questions is, and I'm going to ask the applicant to weigh in on this, and then I think we need to decide if we're going to continue tonight or postpone it. After the applicant talk, we can make a little more comments. But Aaron, do you want to speak about this?
Yeah. I mean, our biggest concern, not the delay as far as impacting construction. The issue is that Mr. Khan has a purchase agreement to buy this piece of property, subject to being able to develop the way he wishes. That 60-day due diligence period allowed us to basically do the survey of the property, develop the sketch plan, prepare the application to your board, and all that was due roughly 30 years ago to meet the county's deadline and everything else. So the clock that we have to ensure that this project is viable expires in less than 2 weeks. So, if we are unable to obtain the variance and know that we have a project that's viable, Mr. Conley is left in a situation that doesn't know if forward the purchase of property, which means the contract he has becomes void, and then the seller could sell it to somebody. So it does significantly impact our right, our ability to move forward with the purchase of property if the project is delayed. That being said, the application before you because has been determined to be a development. The only application is multiple principal structures on a lot. The lot in question is over roughly 3 acres with 4 principal buildings. So we can subdivide it and put the 4 buildings on. Ironically, if you look at Lake Country Village, they are nothing but multiple principal structures on a larger lot. So it's really in with the neighborhood. We're not looking to do a use not permitted. We're not looking to lessen setbacks. We're not looking to lessen green space. It's just the multiple principal variance before you. So, in our opinion, it's a very minor request that this board has reviewed with other applications before. And because of the contractual obligation to complete our due diligence within a time frame, any delays would significantly hurt the project.
Okay. I'm looking for comments from anybody on the board, and I have comments too, but I'm going to hold mine for a minute. Relative to whether or not we want to proceed this evening. I'm looking to hear from somebody on the board. And Ellie, you're not on this one, correct?
Correct.
Right. Yeah, by the way, Aaron, Ally Gent is a member of the homeowners association and recused herself. I don't know if you saw that. Okay, I'm looking for comments about, specifically about continuing with the hearing.
I think I don't see much reason not to continue with the, or I don't see a reason not to continue. Just like we say, we've met the legal requirement and everyone has been notified. It is in the paper, and I personally think this isn't a major issue. I agree with Aaron that you take a look at around the corner and drive down and you're looking at a similar type of thing in Lake Country.
Okay. Any other opinions before I give mine? Okay, I'm going to tell you that I do agree that the reason is stated in the application that one of the reasons that the developer wants to go with the multiple principal structures is to keep the neighborhood feel that there is throughout the rest of it, of the neighborhood. As far as the actual legal implications of whether or not people were notified, I can only say that once those letters leave the building inspector's office, which is only one method of notifying people, it also appears in a timely fashion in the press, and it also appears in the on the city website. I think it would also set an unfavorable precedent if that every time somebody said, geez, I didn't see that, or I didn't notice that, that we would be forced to postpone something or forced to not take an action because somebody said they didn't get to see it. And I do believe, and I'm not trying to be sarcastic about this, but out of 300 people, I have to assume that somebody knew this, or some real estate agent or somebody knew this and said, hey, this is going to happen. So it would be my feeling that there's no reason not to proceed. I also don't like being told that somebody's going to sue us. Go ahead then. Frankly, what do we care? We're not personally liable, right? No, but I don't like to be this whole concept of that we did wrong. We did not do wrong. City staff did exactly what they're supposed to. So I'm going to do this by a show of hands. Everybody of the 5 voting members that would like to proceed with this, raise your hand and say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So that, I'm going to do a roll call. Megan? Aye. Okay. Kelly?
Aye.
Ron? Aye. Scott?
Aye.
TJ?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. So that issue is now put to bed. We are going to be hearing the application. We have the application that was presented, Aaron, and we have a new one, which just because there's a little lack of communication between Joe and I think, mostly didn't get sent out until today electronically, what you had forwarded the other, which was Friday. After Joe's ruling that this is in fact a townhouse project based on the definition of townhouse as a multifamily 4 or more units with separate entrances and vertical separation. By the way, are you building firewalls between them?
Yeah, so I can elaborate a little bit on that. I did listen on the when we made the original application, looking at zoning ordinance, multifamily obviously wise, and then we look at townhouse, it did have language about 0 setback.
Right.
So we thought it was multifamily. It was actually the planning staff that brought it to everybody's attention, thinking that it could possibly be townhouses. Joe did do that. And, the proposed development is a townhouse by definition of New York State Building Code. New York State Building Code defines the townhouse structure that has separate entrances on both sides, front and back, and that is separated from the adjacent unit by a vertical fire separation. So each of these units does have a front door and a back door. It has a vertical fire separation between each unit. So actually there's a 2-hour assembly between all of them. So not only does it meet your zoning ordinance definition of townhouse, but also the definition by building code.
Great.
What that does is
Great.
our first variance had a request for slightly exceeding building coverage by the multi-family definitions, but when utilizing the townhouse definition, we now comply with that. So therefore, the only variance request before you is the multiple principal structures law. So we meet all the other bulk area requirements as far as density, number of dwelling units, green space, impervious area,
Right.
etc. So,
Okay. I think I had mentioned some in the pre-meeting. There was some discussion with planning and so on, but there was some discussion that, about this variance. And I reminded people that in general, people can get this type of relief, whether it's more than one principal structure or more than 24 units on a lot, which they're not asking for, but even in projects that big, where we're at 4.2 acres instead of 5, that we do not, even though you can normally get that with a planned unit development, we never, as an example, would make this a planned unit development by allowing an area variance for a smaller than 5-acre planned unit development. And that has been the history since way before I did it, but in the 20 plus years that I've been doing it, that's been the history how we've treated larger lots that can support multifamily housing, because we find that we prefer the neighborhood feel of smaller buildings, which is obviously, as an example, what the neighbors liked, over one large structure. Two ways to look at that is, one thing that I happen to have a pretty good knowledge of the history of is Catherine Gardens, right in the RH district, where we allowed more than one principal structure so it fit in with the neighborhood, even though there was also a large building that they kept so that they could preserve Mount Assumption Institute building. But I think that this is there's a huge amount of precedent where we have granted this. I don't know if I can remember where we haven't granted it. I guess I would say it that way. There might have been something where somebody just rammed as much as they could in, but also needed lots of other variances, coverage, parking, blah, blah, blah. So that said, I do consider this to be a relatively standard application. I'm going to ask the board for any comments first, and then I'm going to open it to the public.
No questions from here.
Okay. All right, why don't we do this then, in case somebody, I'm looking to see if there are any hands being raised, Kyle.
No hands.
No hands, nobody is asking to speak, correct?
Correct.
Okay, then I'm going to close the public hearing portion of this. We've offered the public the opportunity, including neighbors and others, to weigh in. Does anybody have any questions about this? How about if I do a little synopsis and say that from what I understand, also, this isn't your end stop. You're going from here to the planning board for sketch plan, correct, Aaron? Sketch next?
We're here, we'll be before the zoning board next week for sketch plan, which we will receive their comments. And at that point, Mr. Conti will then have a, comfortable understanding what the project's viable and move forward or not.
Right. So what's going to happen is let's say that we approve the multiple principal structures on a lot, it will then go to the planning board. I'm talking to my board mostly now. Go to the planning board, and they will weigh in on their comments, which I believe is the proper order, that we give the applicant as much latitude and the number of choices that we would allow, which would be up to 4 principal structures that they're asking for here. They go to the planning board and make sure that all of the traffic, all of the parking, all of the lane, aisle widths, and all that stuff, and where they put their dumpster and the downlights and all that stuff work together. And stormwater management, which is all outside of our jurisdiction. And that will all be handled there. And if that plan changes significantly, the applicant knows that they can have up to 4, as an example here, separate principal structures. If they end up settling for different, but less than that, that's between them and the planning board, is my understanding. And you don't come back to us for plan. You come back if you decided on 5, as an example.
Correct.
Not that you're going to, right. So with that said, I want to know if there's any other comments from the board. My only other question that I have for you, Aaron, is that we have the long form seeker, but isn't this just an area variance?
It is just an area variance, but I believe under your, I'd have to go back and look. There was a rationale for that, but I guess more information is better than less.
Oh yeah, it's okay. And if we do this seeker, the seeker is done for the project, correct?
No, because
The
you're
planning board
doing an uncoordinated review. So your seeker is
okay.
applying towards the multiple principal structures. The planning board would then be responsible to do their own separate seeker based on the plan design.
All right, so let's go through the seeker. Unless anybody has other comments about this application. And if not, I'd like to take a look at the seeker and see if anybody has questions about this, and we'll, I guess, review it as a long form seeker. Yeah, building, and you've got all of the answers correct in the as to permits, Aaron. Thank you. I guess in general, what I would say is I'm assuming that relatively about the only thing that these things impact is whether or not there are enough public utilities available, both from MLD and water and sewer, to feed the project. And I assume that this went to them, and I didn't see anything.
Yep.
There are no comments from. Oh no, there is. I'm sorry, I take that back.
Yeah, there are some comments
There's a comment.
as far as load, but yeah, we've met with water, we've met with Public Works, and there's adequate supply. We'll have to finalize connection points, things like that, with our final site plan, but there is adequacy to supply.
Right. Right, but all of these comments by MLD were okay with you, right?
Yes.
Right, and the county, by the way, did say it was a local issue, not even with comments. So I guess my question is, does anybody have questions on the seeker itself, knowing that this is going to go through another seeker at the planning board? I'd like to treat this, even though we could get by with a short form seeker. This is the one that would not require me to sign anything, but would require a motion that we find no adverse environmental impact in a second. And so I guess what I'm looking for relative to the seeker, unless somebody has any questions about each of the individual items, is a motion proposing that we find no adverse environmental impact.
I'll make a motion in regards to appeal 2259 after review of the full environmental assessment form, reviewing the questions and answers, that this project will have no adverse environmental impact.
Okay, seconded by
I'll second.
Maggie. Oh no, let's let PJ do it this time. Seconded by PJ Whitbeck. All right, for the seeker, we're going to do an all. We're all going to say aye, and then I'll do a roll call. Everybody in favor of finding no adverse environmental impact, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, as a roll call for the official record, Kelly,
Aye.
Megan,
Aye.
yeah, I know, it's just delayed. Scott,
Aye.
TJ,
Aye.
okay, thank you. Is there any other discussion about this? If not, I'm looking for a motion regarding the granting of a variance for form, as per the plan, modified because coverage is not an issue, based on the electronic plan sent to us today. I'm looking for a motion to approve the variance for 4 principal structures on one lot, totaling 16 residential units, as per the plan.
I'll make a motion in appeal or for appeal 2259. I make a motion to approve the Class B area variance request to permit the construction of multiple principal buildings on the same parcel and overage of maximum building coverage allowed on parcel 233.8-1-1.11, corner of Kansas Avenue and New York Road, for 16 units and 4 principal buildings on the one lot.
Okay. Who's
I'll
gonna
second that.
motion?
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Moved by Kelly, seconded by Scott. We're going to send Lisa. A yes vote would be to approve 4 principal structures on that lot.
Megan, yes.
Yes.
Ron, yes.
Yes.
Scott, yes.
Yes.
Kelly, yes.
Yes.
PJ, yes.
Yes.
You're all set. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And good application. Thank you, Anthony. Tony, thank you.
Have a good night.
You're all set. Thank you. You too. Thanks. Okay. Okay, we have Corey. We have community development. We have Joe. Do we have anybody else joining us for, we're going to be doing small business.
Yes,
And the old
there's,
business,
sorry, Ron.
there, Yeah, that's
Dean and Matt are also on the call. If you want me to pull them in.
I'm sorry, say it again.
Dean and Matt are also on the call. If you want me to pull them in at any time.
Okay. Okay, great. So, and Corey, I'm going to ask for your leadership and advice here as we proceed on this because it's a little different. The questions as we discussed, there are 2 questions as we discussed in the pre-meeting. Number 1, the applicant, actually Prime sent us, the attorney for Prime, Charlie, not as opposed to the applicant, the city, strictly speaking, sent us a letter saying that they felt they didn't have to appear before us because the condition said that if it did, was not consistent with the condition, that they had to come back. It was sort of our understanding that no matter what, they had to come back, but I think the words are correct there in a sense. However, there is some question about, A, whether it is up to them to determine that, the applicant, in other words, or frankly, the applicant's attorney, or B, whether we are the ones who should say, yeah, it is consistent. You don't have to come back, or we think it's inconsistent, or we have some questions. So question number 1 is, for old business, reaction to the letter from Charlie, the Prime's attorney, regarding that and the conditions. And this isn't a question of whether or not it's consistent. It's a question of whether or not we feel that they should be coming back to us, really. And then the second thing is that we have totally separate issue to discuss for Prime. I like to call it the city. Discuss for the city application in partnership with Prime, I guess. The resolutions and findings that we have that were based on the findings and resolutions we looked at the last meeting, and were, I think, grammatically mostly, and correct me if I'm wrong, Corey, but there were no major changes except cleaning up grammar typos. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So, seeing how we want to proceed with that, to get those signed and filed with the city clerk. Frankly, one has, at least in my mind, and I just want to talk about this, one has nothing to do with the other. We have agreed that we reached a consensus that those were the findings and resolutions we approved. And other than changing and cleaning up any grammar or typos, that I was to sign them. I just want to make sure that they are done. This has nothing to do with them coming back for that's specified in these documents, but their coming back or not has nothing to do with us signing the documents. We're not going to hold the documents in any way hostage. That's not the point of this. But the point is really to talk about the parking and make sure we understand that it is consistent with our conditions. So those are the two issues. I guess what I would say, Ethan, is bring them in. Right, Corey? That's okay, isn't it?
Sure.
Okay, bringing them in now.
Okay.
Ron, can I ask
Mhm.
a question?
Yeah,
Just to
sure.
clear, the findings, they were sent this afternoon. I was not able to
Oh,
open.
I apologize. You know what? I told you I'd send it and I never sent it, did I?
No, it's okay. I read them before when we had them before, and I just want to clarify. I'm not comfortable with saying that I want to go ahead and sign them if there were any big changes, but if you're talking about just typos and stuff, then I've already read it and we're fine as long as
Okay.
it's the same as before.
Yeah, right. And we can talk about that a little bit after to make sure. And I guess you'd accept the assurances of everybody else that it hadn't changed or whatever. So, hi, let's see. We have Matt, Charlie, and Dean. Is that it? Just three of you? Is there just three of you?
Correct.
Yes? Great. For the first time in this whole process, I think you don't outnumber us. That's good. All right. Hi. I want you to understand that although Charlie, I read your letter, it was very well crafted, frankly. The issue with me, and I have Corey with me too, isn't so much whether. First of all, for me personally, and we can talk to the rest of the board, I really felt that it needed, no matter what you did with the planning board, that it was going to have to come back to us. And I wish that really what had happened, I'll just tell you in hindsight, is that you guys had said, hey, why don't you put us on the January agenda so that after we're done with the planning board, we can come back and just make sure you're happy with this. That's what I wish we had done. And I wish I'd actually asked you to do that. And then, which you would have done, I'm sure, frankly. So the only question here, we have two issues. One issue does not pertain to you at all, and that is us getting the resolutions and findings on it. It has nothing to do with the conditions, as I said before, and I want to just be clear. This is not about our approval or any of that. It's strictly about, are you consistent with our condition? Okay, and what does that mean? And so I think that this works. Dean has authority to speak for Prime. You have authority to. Matt has authority to speak for the city, correct? Okay, so the real question, let's talk about this whole thing. And I read all the stuff, and so did we all, Charlie, about what I said and this said and that said. But it really comes down for me, and I'm just going to sort of slam into this as I do anyway. It comes down to me, the one question that I need to understand. I think you're very clear that you've created 16 new spaces. And I think you're very clear that you're going to give 92 spaces in that south lot, dedicate them to the public, right? I don't think, I watched the planning board meeting while you did that. Most of it, I couldn't take all 2.5 hours, frankly. And I just want to understand a couple of things. One is, it doesn't seem clear to me what access, and maybe this is partly just my questions, what is public, dedicated to public means? We know it means that you can't lease it. Like, in other words, you can't say, we're going to assign these spaces to a tenant. We can't do that stuff. But the concern, as you know, is what happens with the 3,400 square feet at the farmer's market building. Now, you could answer me, I'm going to give you a bunch of stuff. You could answer me and say, well, all those customers are still going to park in the spaces over under the building and walk over to that building. And if that's the answer you think is viable, as an example, that's okay. The concern I personally have, and the reason I'm not positive that your plan is consistent with our condition, is that I'm not sure you're able to maintain all 92 spaces for the public if in the midst of it you have at the furthest south end of the lot, a commercial or other use that requires parking. As an example, what if, whatever you did there, people are going to want to park there. So that's really the question for me. I think we made a lot of progress getting the 92 spaces. The second question that I need to understand, and I've been bombarded by this, frankly, about this from other people, but I've said, look, it's my understanding that those 92 spaces will fall under, and Matt, this is where you come in, will fall under the same rules and auspices, in a sense, as the city parking. So as an example, if the city charges $1 an hour for Arnie Pavone, then are we to assume that, to call it public parking, that the 92 spaces would fall under that same price range? And if in fact the city decided not to charge for Arnie Pavone, would those spaces in fact be free? So that's what I just need, that information, so we can clarify and put to bed the fact that you're consistent with our condition. Do those questions make sense?
They make sense to me, Dean. I don't know if they make sense to you from an operational standpoint as well.
Yeah, I think we've been fairly clear on the parking. We likely will be charging parking. It's going to be whatever the market is for parking. We do have a lot of expenses. Are we going to say, if the city's giving free parking away, that our parking is going to be free? No, we've never said that. But we are, obviously we're not going to charge $5 an hour if the market's $1 an hour. So that's what our intention is with the parking.
Okay. Can I ask you it this way then, Dean? And I like it that I can ask you, frankly. Can we assume that if the city's going to charge $1 an hour for Arnie Pavone, I don't even know what the numbers are, that your pricing would be consistent with that, not what the market will bear, but consistent with that? And if the city did it for free, it still would be reasonable parking? Because I understand your expense point.
Yeah, if our competition for parking, and not that we're in this to make a bunch of money for parking, we're looking to just try and cover our costs for the most part, is $1, and that's what the market is, then that's what we're going to likely be. We unfortunately, unlike the city, we can't raise taxes to raise revenue to take care of maintenance and reserves and whatnot. So we're in a little different situation than the city is.
That's right. And the city's not maintaining it, is that correct? The city won't be plowing the south lot, you will be?
No, yeah, we're doing all the improvements, the expenses of all the improvements to that lot, which is significant. And then all of the, in our agreement with the city, all the maintenance is on us. on that lot.
Including snow removal and everything, right?
That's right. Yes.
All right, so I'm again, do you have an answer about the farmer's market building? And where are the people gonna, I guess that's my question, that more even than the, you know, I think that your intention is correct, that you intend to make all 92 spaces public. I fully agree, and I think that at first blush, that certainly is consistent with the condition we set, which was 92 spaces. And I think frankly, you're gonna find that the building inspectors think that's correct. I think you're probably gonna find that Corey thinks it's correct. Okay, but I still have this lingering question about where are the people going. Do you even know what you're doing with the farmer's market building yet?
We are talking to a tenant right now. We haven't put anything together yet. I can't really say what it is or what it's about, but we are working with somebody. As far as where people park, yeah, Rod, I wish I could tell you that. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I'm not sure where people are going to park. Hopefully a lot of the people that are going to be using are going to be walking there from our building and maybe some other development that happens in the city, because that usually follows thereafter,
Right.
But I'd be lying to you if I said, oh, don't worry about it, they're all going to park underneath our building or within our building, because I can't. It's be impossible to monitor or to make that
Right.
representation.
Absolutely, I understand that. Do you think that building could become a restaurant?
Right now, what we're talking to about it is not a restaurant, but could it be? Yeah, it's
Right.
on the water. It's a cool looking building, and so yeah, that's a possibility. It's a possibility.
Okay, which would impact, in other words, if it was a big restaurant, it would require more space. I'm not talking about calculations or altered calculations. I'm really talking about the sanctity of the 92 spaces and protecting that. That's all. I'm going to open this to the board. There's no public comment. This isn't a public hearing. You're not even on the agenda. This is internal old business for us to finalize this and then also talk about your findings and resolution. Okay. So I'm going to just open the board to see what they have for questions. Okay.
I don't have any questions. You pretty well covered all of my concerns, Ron. And that is one of my concern, or the big concern is the people going to the farmer's market. Where are they going to park? And Dean, and Charlie, you've both heard me be concerned about it. So.
And just to chime in again, and Matt, I'm sure you could chime in even more. Getting back to the bigger picture of parking and parking that's close by, and I think the gist of it is what we've scrutinized and what's been scrutinized through the whole EIS process is that there is adequate parking, and it always contemplated that building staying there. We've actually created additional spaces since the determination was made that there's adequate parking in the area. So I think with all that the city's done and all the parking that they've created and the additional parking now that we have as well, I think it's been fairly well vetted that there should be adequate parking downtown.
And I'll echo that as well.
I do have a question. If the city does revert back to free parking, assuming that they're going to go to paid parking, if they do revert back to free parking, would you consider entering into an agreement with the city such that you could make that free parking?
Depends on what the agreement said.
Well, if they went back to free parking, they would have to reinstate the special assessment district, and there would be funds from there that you might be able to tap into.
Oh yeah,
something along
yeah,
those
sure. If there was, a way to make the math work for us and it work for everybody else, we're always open to those discussions.
Right. You bring this up, Scott, not to interject, and I'm going to ask for board members still, but I think that's something that's one of the things that's happened throughout this entire, however long we've been doing this process, is that there's been a lot of confusion about, especially amongst the public, about the jurisdiction of various boards and what we have control over, just like we don't have control over Durkee Street. We don't have control over the pilot. We don't have control over a whole bunch of stuff. And we don't really have control over the parking. So because we don't have that control, we also don't know what the most current plan is, and I don't even know if anybody does. And I know there's been recommendations from parking committees and all that, but I don't know, as I've seen yet, unless I'm missing something, a final determination of what's going to happen to parking downtown. We know that there used to be a special assessment district, and people paid money to use Durkee Street, right? All the property owners paid into the special assessment. I think it was $75,000 a year or whatever it was for all that parking downtown, right? And that's where the funds came from to maintain that parking lot. So if the city did go back to a special assessment district, and those 92 spaces were considered part of that, and proportionally you got that might work. But do we know, Matt? Do we even know what is going to happen with the parking downtown?
So if you're asking if the council has made any final determinations as to the direction of downtown parking, the answer is no, not at this time, but very detailed recommendations have been presented to the council by the city's parking committee, one of which is, of course, replacing the revenue generation mechanism that currently exists through the special assessment district, replacing that with a more equitable system, which uses fees generated by the users of the systems themselves to pay for the upkeep of the system. And of course, I can't speak to the council and what decisions they might make in the future, but I will say that over the course of the past 18 months, in my discussions with them about, the need to make decisions about the future of the parking system, they have been receptive to those arguments. But again, I can't speak for any decisions that they might make in the future.
But I guess for our purposes, the question is, will you in general be consistent with the rest of the downtown parking? It sounds like you will. You're going to charge us. If it's charged parking, you charge the same. I'm assuming that if it's not charged parking in one way or another, you're either going to have to charge for it, even if the city's free and has a special assessment district, or join part of it. That's something this is outside of our control. It's outside of our jurisdiction. I can't hold you to this. I barely can ask you about it. I'm just mentioning it. But it goes to the spirit of whether or not you're consistent with our condition. That's all. So
I can assure you that if the city wants to come to us and we've always worked very, very closely with the communities, and they had another option for parking that made us whole, I'd be more than happy to sit down and talk to them and try to work together with them. I can tell you that, on my word.
Okay. Corey,
can I ask a quick question? I just have a quick question, just for clarity to your point, Ron. So if Prime is in control of the cost associated with the 92 parking spaces, what is to say that Prime, would you agree, Dean, that it would not be consistent, for example, for Prime to waive the parking fee for customers of either the farmer's market commercial space or the commercial space within the building? In other words, that would be not treating the parking spaces in a manner that made them publicly available to all customers. Are you following what I'm asking?
Right. Yeah, not available to all public people at the same condition, in the same conditions, correct? If some
Yeah.
people, it specializes people that are customers of their tenants to have an advantage. How that's enforced, I don't know, but that's the good, that's, I guess, sort of the point of this whole question, to make sure that you're consistent. And I'm not understanding, I'm not saying you aren't consistent. I'm only saying I want to make sure you are consistent, okay? So that's correct, Corey. The question is, will everybody be treated the same? Which is part of where it comes from, this question about, certainly whoever's going to have a business in the farmer's market building is going to want customers to pull right up to it. Which, let's use your figure of 14 spaces, which is what that farmer's market building accounts for 14 of the spaces that you, in your calculation. That basically, it's 3,400 feet, one for 300, and I think you had a couple employee ones in there. It's actually just about the same as the city at 1 for 250. So those 14 spaces, let's assume that that's accurate, because it's close enough to the cities to be accurate, non-restaurant wise. Those 14 spaces might get used by customers more. And what Corey is asking, and I think is a good point, is that when we talk about public spaces, to be consistent with the spaces being public, considered public, it would mean that they, in general, operate under the same or similar conditions to the rest of the public parking in downtown,
Right.
which
So
is
if
what
I-
you're saying.
Yeah, if I understand the question correctly, I think I do. There'll be no different treatment. In other words, if somebody wanted to park in that lot, but they're going to the farmer's market, they can park for free, whereas the other general public can't, then the answer is no. We're gonna, whatever, that lot is gonna be consistent, no matter where they're gonna go shop. If they're gonna go shop across the street, if they're gonna shop at the whatever goes into the farmer's market, that's going to be consistent. Right now, our concept is that we'd have some sort of a gated system like you'd see, and you grab a ticket, and when you leave, you put your ticket back in and you pay. So that we have no intention to make anything special for whoever goes there. They got to pay like everybody else.
I'm gonna play devil's advocate for a second, Corey, in a sense, and say, though, to be consistent, what if the city decides that all the downtown merchants can give a discount, as an example, off goods purchased with the paid parking fee or ticket or whatever you want to call it? Then you could be consistent with that too, and do the same, but it'd be because it was all throughout downtown. Does that make sense?
Sometimes there may be a vendor across the street that says, I want my guests to park for free. I'll validate their ticket, and I'm sure there's a way to, and then we collect the money from the vendor, whatever we work out. There's certainly, I'm sure, ways to program the ticket gate to do that.
But what Corey's asking, and I think I'm agreeing to ask, and even what Scott is that these spaces are 92 spaces, and nobody has an advantage, including the customers of the farmers market. Quite frankly, I'm going to tell you that I've never really, as you know, agreed with the alternate calculation. I thought it was too light, but that it's been approved. I'm not going back. I'm not fighting that fight anymore. But what I'll tell you is that I think it's unrealistic, probably, to think that if you get, say, a brewery, which I'm hoping you do, frankly, but if you get a brewery at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock at night, if they're successful, there's going to be bleed over into the public spaces. It's not going to matter. The offices are closed. Most of the other businesses are closed. So I've always assumed that there's going to be bleed over. And who's the public? I mean, if they go to the co-op first and then they go to your restaurant, where do they park? In your place, in the other place? There is a hybridization here of the parking. So I guess, Corey, do you see anything else procedurally that we need to worry about? Should we vote on this? I'm not going to certainly declare it, but I mean, should we be saying, I guess one of the ways to look at this is we could either, as an example, accept the correspondence from the applicant's attorney. We could make a separate determination. I'm looking, I guess, for what we want to do to decide that it is or is not consistent with our condition.
Yeah, I think there's a variety of options here. You know, the applicant has placed, or Prime has placed their position into the record that that the final site plan and the final plan that was approved is consistent with the resolution. If there was no modification to the final project as represented in the final site plan, then, you know, or if there was a modification, but the modification was consistent, then no further action is necessary from the zoning board. So you could accept the correspondence that you receive from the applicant, or you and adopt the findings therein, or you can just someone can make a motion that that there was no modification to the final project as represented in the final site plan, and therefore nothing further is required from the zoning board, or that if there was a modification to the final project, any modification was consistent with the resolution. That would conclusively place into the record the determination of the zoning board on those issues, or someone could propose the opposite, that there was a modification and the modification was inconsistent. Any of those I think would be acceptable. I think the cleanest one would just be a motion that the project that was approved by the planning board is consistent with the resolution. If that is, you know, how the mover feels, that could be seconded, and you could take a vote, and that would place into the record that that had been finally determined.
Could I say that if that was going to be the method, that the final plan is consistent, and that it can, which would include the fact that it provides 92 public spaces?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's really right. As opposed to just being consistent with the condition, I'd like to say that it's 92 public spaces. Somebody say it's 92 public spaces. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and if somebody makes a motion, you could then have discussion on the question.
Right.
If anyone wants to, if there's any question, you know, discussion to be had, and
Right.
you know, and take it from there.
Okay. Before we do that, does anybody have questions, concerns? Scott, Ellie? I mean, I think there's some clarification here. Part of this is really what I had hoped to accomplish, frankly, which was to get Dean to say what he really intended to do, which you did, Dean, which is what I was hoping you would say. And it's nothing, I think you're right, that you can't control this. And I think that the spirit of our recommendation and the spirit of your final plan is that you aim to provide 92 public spaces consistent with the way that the public spaces are handled throughout downtown. Does that make sense? Yes, is that a yes?
Are you asking me, Charlie?
What's that?
I'm sorry, I didn't know we were addressing the question to.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was addressing it to you, Dean, because
Okay.
Not that I don't like Charlie and Matt, but the spirit of this is that you intend to provide 92 public spaces, which you've said several times.
Yes.
And that even though I had questions about it, I'm going to tell you honestly, I did, certainly about the farmers market building, that your concept is that you will provide 92 public spaces that will be consistently managed in the same way that the rest of downtown parking is managed. In other words, fees will be consistent. If the city wants to enter into a SAD with you, right, special assessment district, you can work with them on that, but you will be consistent with the rest of the parking downtown.
Yeah, just one bit of clarification. Absolutely, we'd be more than happy to talk with the city and collaborate on better ways to do the parking. The one thing that consistency with the city that I tried to make clear before is the city could simply raise taxes to cover their expenses. We can't. So if the city decides that they're going to charge nothing, I don't think we'll be in that same position. But besides that, I agree with everything that you said.
Right. Actually, if the city decides that they're going to charge nothing to the parker, they're charging the landowner, right? They're charging a special assessment fee. So nobody's going to be paying that special, unless you enter into that agreement, nobody's going to be paying that special assessment fee to you. So your revenue would be the same as a consistent, parking in a sense. So you still would be consistent. I know what you're saying. You can't do it for free unless you're part of the special assessment district, basically.
Right, correct. Yeah, I just want to be clear about that.
I think you're clear. And I think that is clear. So I guess.
And more importantly, Ron, that all 92 spaces are going to be treated the same at all times.
That's right.
And that is correct.
Is that correct?
That is correct.
Right.
Yes.
And so whatever motion we make, and this is being Ethan, this is being recorded.
Correct.
Okay. So whatever motion we make would include the clarifications from this meeting, the verbal, because we don't have, there will be minutes eventually, but we'll include the clarifications by the applicant and by the board at this meeting. Right? So if that's the case, I guess what I'm going to tell you is that I agree with Corey that if we have a motion that the final site plan for that Prime got approved by the city planning board, along with the clarification from this meeting, is consistent with our conditions, is what we're looking for. Correct, Corey?
Correct.
Okay, and a second on that.
Are you making the motion, Ron?
I'm not making the motion.
Okay.
I don't make motions.
You're looking for a
So
motion?
I'm looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I want to make sure I get the wording correctly for the record for you, Ron. I make a motion that we approve the letter that we received stating that the plans are consistent with our conditions, and that includes the statements that were recorded this evening by both the board and the applicant for Prime. Is that what you're looking for? Sorry.
Right? Is that okay, Corey?
Yeah, and
Do
I think
have a
I would just add specifically that the 92 spaces will be treated consistently with the city parking, and that all 92 spaces will be treated the same. Just to clarify those 2 points.
Is that okay with you, Corey? I mean, with you, Kelly?
Yeah. I've been listening to Dean, and I think he's made it very clear that the only example of that not being the case would be if the city were to decide not to charge. So, as I said before, consistent with statements made this evening by both the board and by the applicant.
Okay. And do I have a second?
Second.
Scott, were you going to do it? Who did it? Ellie? Who seconded? Ellie did? Okay. Is there any reason not to do this by a show of hands? It's not that formal, is it? Okay, all in favor? Raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so Charlie, Dean, Matt, so you know, this is all I actually hope to accomplish, was to make sure that we were consistent and clear, and I think we are. And we got them, you gave us the 92 spaces, which is what we asked for. I think that it was nice that you did the 16 spaces. And I think that this really helps the parking downtown. Don't forget, we went from 50 spaces to 92. We gained 42 spaces of public parking that you gave us. And some people will poo-poo and say, oh, why didn't you make them not build the building? Or why didn't you change Durkee Street or fix the pilot? All which stuff, well, maybe the building we could have controlled a little bit, but not much.
And at the end, Ron, at the end, we got 16 more spaces in addition to that as well, too. So everybody understands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree. I think that it's certainly going to help. And I'm going to be interested to see, once you're all built out and all this happens, where we're at with parking with downtown. Everybody's got their guess. Everybody, just like the pandemic, everybody knows what it's going to affect. Anyway, so we are all set with that. We're also going to do as old business. I'm going to ask people if they're going to authorize me to sign the 2 documents, which if so, I'm going to have somebody prepare them. But that's not really your concern, because we've already said we're going to sign them. Or, you know, as far as I'm concerned, you guys came and answered tonight what you needed to. We've determined that you've met the condition. The one condition is done. That's all that matters. And all we're doing now is finalizing how I can get these documents signed and filed at the clerk, which will happen this week.
Thank you.
So thank you for stopping. Thank you for stopping by. We'll try and have
Thank you, everybody. Have a good week.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a good week.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Thank you. Corey, I just want you're staying, right?
It's been fun.
Yeah.
I think my work here is done.
Yeah.
Thank you,
so
Corey.
The only question we have now, and I think that, by the way, they answered our questions. That Scott, you know, you and I were probably and Ellie might have had some doubts there and stuff, and even you, Kelly, I think probably did, believe it or not. But I think that they've shown that they really want it to be 92 public spaces. And I think in the end, if the city's smart, they will try and include them in a special assessment district, because I don't think it's a moneymaker for Prime, no matter what they do, frankly, to run a parking lot. You know, the only other question is, how does the board feel about the resolutions and the finding statements? I have read them. I didn't look at, frankly, Appendix A and B very much, Corey, to be honest with you, but I read the nuts and bolts of the other 2. I'm going to tell you that I have no issue with signing them. So I guess when I'm looking
for that.
Yeah. Does anybody have any questions about them? Okay.
No.
I'm looking for a motion to authorize me to sign and offer for filing the 2 documents prepared by Corey Auerbach.
I'll make a motion that after reviewing the findings and resolution, that the chairperson sign both documents and submit with only minor changes having been made since reviewing and discussing them at the December board meeting.
Okay, seconded by.
I'll second that.
Okay, Scott. I'm going to do this by a raising of hands. I'm not going to have Lisa have to go through all that hard work. All in favor of me filing the documents, say aye.
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 Okay. I'm going to quickly just do a roll call on that, just because this is a pretty official act. Kelly?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
TJ?
Aye.
Ellie?
Aye.
And I was an aye. So that is all set.
And then just
Okay,
one housekeeping item. Ethan, will community development coordinate the filing and the circulation of the findings to the DEC and the involved agencies, et cetera?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Okay, so what I'm gonna do, Joe, is I'm going to send you the documents tonight. And when you have them ready for me to sign, you can bring them over because I'm still not going out in public, and I will sign them and you can file them at the city clerk's. And I'm going to forward the same email that I forwarded to everybody. Corey, all it did is say that here's the findings. I've taken out all the other previous stuff because we had a whole bunch of other conversations going on. I'm going to send that, the same email that I sent to the board members today, I will also send to community development. And I guess I'll send it to Dean Schneller. Okay, and I'll copy Corey and I'll copy community development. Does the board care to be copied? Probably not, right? As long as you know I'm sending it. Do you want to see it again that I sent it? No. Okay. That's it. That's the old business. And that's done, right?
It's been an absolute
Corey,
pleasure
thank
working with you guys. Thank you all so much.
Thank
Best
you,
of luck.
Corey.
Well,
Okay.
listen, we'll call on you again. Absolutely.
I'm here if you need me.
You owe me. Yeah, you owe me some paperwork, don't you?
Yes, I do, and I will get it to you.
Yeah, that's good. I just want to get it in and submitted.
You got it.
So we
Thanks,
can,
everybody.
So we get it paid.
Thank you, Corey.
Thank you, Corey.
Bye-bye.
All right, we'll talk to you soon. Thanks. All right, does anybody else have any other old or new business? Oh, we had 2
Approve minutes.
meeting minutes. Yeah. Okay. November 6th, November minutes and December minutes.
I'll
Does
make a
anybody have
motion.
any?
I'll make a motion to
Okay.
approve December minutes because I wasn't at the November meeting and then I got a boogie.
Okay.
Okay, so
Does
I
anybody?
make a motion to approve the December 21st, 2020 meeting minutes as written with no changes.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Seconded by all
Scott,
in favor that we're there. Aye.
aye.
Okay. Thanks, Kelly.
Thank
Quickly,
you.
We'll see you, Kelly. Thank you very much.
Bye, guys.
The meeting was not last night.
You are correct. Have a good
All
one.
right. Yeah, you too. All right. Secondly, I'm looking for confirmation of the November meetings, which was only prime minutes, and also Julie being appointed as an alternate member. So all of the everybody can vote on this. Doesn't have to just be all 5. I want you to know. So does anybody have any questions about the November meeting minutes? Well, if not, I'm looking for a motion.
I make
Oh.
a motion to approve the December meeting minutes.
November?
Oh, no, does that? Yeah, November, sorry.
Okay. Seconded by Megan. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Does anybody have any other business other than my motion to, asking for a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Seconded by PJ? Thank you, PJ. All in favor? Aye. See you
Aye.
guys later. Thanks. Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Lisa.